Welcome to Conversations and Connections, the official podcast of the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. I'm Stuart Burson, the Prevention Coordinator for the Family Crisis Center. And with us today, Ashley Cook with Harold's House. Ashley has been on the podcast before, and we're going to be talking about something that's very interesting and something that is just becoming more and more popular. First of all, Ashley, thank you for coming over.
Thank you so much for having me.
What we're going to be talking about, and I guess maybe I should kind of put up a warning flag here at the beginning. We are going to be talking about artificial intelligence, AI, but in relation to child pornography, child abuse. So maybe some sensitive things we're going to be talking about. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that. But artificial intelligence, or AI, and actually you probably know because you're on social media and we all use devices. It's everywhere
Yes.
now. I know, like Windows has its own AI thing. I have a Samsung phone. Samsung has its own AI element. Chat GPT is a big thing now that a lot of people are using, right?
Yes.
And I want to start off by saying that I am a tech nerd, and I do think that AI can have some benefits. I think there is some things creatively that AI can be used for. In fact, I know a lot of folks in the work environment have used Chat GPT for some things. That it does have its positives,
Yes.
and it is getting very popular. However, it seems like with everything, there's always got to be something to spoil a good thing.
Yes.
I guess that's kind of the best way to talk about it. And with technology getting more advanced, more problems are coming up. And I guess the very first thing, and I'll let you weigh in on this, the very first thing I really can think of, and I remember this coming up to the surface a few years ago, was what's known as deep fakes.
Yes.
With AI now and computer technology, how users can manipulate video or create video that is completely fabricated, that is false, but it looks very convincing.
Yes.
And one of the top two things that I remember reading about is, one, politics. People manipulating videos of certain politicians, making them look like they're doing certain things when they were not, and so forth. And and that is not to discount that. That is an unfortunate thing, but also pornography and manipulating. I guess celebrities, were the big thing when this first started. Making very convincing looking videos, very realistic videos that were completely fake.
Yes.
And it just seems like now this has just snowballed, and we're getting now into some very unfortunate and dangerous aspects.
It truly has. It truly has. And I just want to pause a moment to let folks know kind of where I'm coming from on this and why I'm talking about it. I work for Harold's House, the Children's Advocacy Center, covering a few counties here in East Texas. We're the folks who work with the emergency responders when reports of child abuse have come out. So children come to our center, receive forensic interviews, forensic physical exams if needed, counseling, advocacy, and support. And so that's where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this, about, what are we seeing in our community? I do agree, definitely. I was an old school photographer. I took college courses, and
You used film.
I did. I did the old school film. And you used to really be able to tell when an image had been altered.
Yeah.
And early on in digital media, you could tell, the old Star Wars movies that they kind of tweaked, which as an old Star Wars fan, I'm not a big fan of that. But the CGI tweaks that they did, you could tell. But now the technology has evolved to the point where you cannot tell frequently when you are looking at an image that it has been altered. And so there are apps that anyone can get from the stores in Apple and in the Samsung that will change a face. You can take your own picture and age it, or you can make yourself younger. There's a face app that can do that. And you really, and I'm saying this as someone who worked in photography and my first career was in journalism, you really can't tell.
Yeah.
And so someone can be online sending you pictures of themselves, and a child might think they're talking to a 13-year-old, but maybe they're really 35 or 45 or 60. You really can't tell. But now with the rise of AI, this has become a deep concern because they have what we're seeing are three different things. First, there's what we call the original child pornography, which in the advocacy world, we have changed that term for the last few years. We are now calling that child sexual abuse material, or CSAM is the acronym we use, but it is child sexual abuse material, and we're using that very intentionally to let people know it's not a kiddified version of porn. This is actual child sexual abuse that is happening. When this is produced, when these other images are altered, when they are viewed by other people and shared, a child is suffering abuse every time that happens.
Yeah.
And so we want to be really clear in that conversation, and that's why we've changed the terminology there. Although everyone knows what child porn is, it's just that child sexual abuse material clarifies what's happening. But AI has entered into our local community in good ways and bad.
One of the things I want to come out of the gate is say there may be some people out there that think, and honestly, when we first kind of started batting around the idea of doing this topic on the podcast, I really didn't know what the laws stated. But to be clear, even AI-generated child porn images are illegal.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, because, there are subtleties in there that the law does not address. The three types of things that we currently know about as in the world of child sexual abuse crimes would be that original child sexual abuse material that's being produced where most often it's someone in their own home taking pictures of their own children or others, or they're downloading it. So there's that actual image of a real child. And then there's the deep fake, which is the second one, where you take someone's face and you put it onto a body or a situation, and that's like a hybrid of a real image and AI.
Okay.
And then there's the third category, which is entirely AI created. Now, the laws are, as always, they're not able to catch up as quickly as technology advances. And so that third one and some of the one in the middle are difficult, very difficult for our law enforcement to investigate and prosecute, our courts to prosecute, because the laws around that third kind some of them don't exist. And then the middle kind, where it's a hybrid, it's very difficult. You have to have an expert to determine, is this or is this not a deep fake?
Okay. I guess whenever I was looking at some material, I was thinking that even though it's fake, it's still the depiction of children in pornographic situations, and that still made it
But there
illegal.
I have seen ongoing now legal fights
Okay.
over people who are the defense attorneys defending people who have been in possession of this, and whether the law does or does not specify that an entirely fake image is that or is that not a crime, because there's not an actual child involved.
Okay.
And so that's the question legally that is going on right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I don't, as obviously as advocates, we think it's horrible. It's horrendous.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Why would anyone want that? But
Right.
how you prosecute those things begins to be an issue. But now we have the rise of, what we're going to be talking about now
Yeah.
with the Take It Down
Right,
Act.
right. Which, the timing couldn't even be better than. So when we're recording this, literally, this is Wednesday, Monday was when this legislation was passed called the Take It Down Act. Makes publishing or distributing non-consensual, sexually explicit material a federal crime. And it's not just for children. It's not just,
Yes.
doesn't make it AI-generated images of children. It's anyone.
Anyone non-consensual for children, they cannot legally consent. In the state of Texas, no one under the age of 17 can legally consent to sex. So it makes it a federal crime. Then for adults, if it's non-consensual material, for instance, those people who do the revenge porn, where you take images while you're
Right.
dating.
And I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to make it clear, the Take It Down, it's not just for AI generated, it's for anything.
Anything.
Like you
yes.
said, revenge porn or
Yes.
anything that is non-consensual.
There are deeper issues that I'd like to talk about in a moment around the AI in a minute when we get there.
Yeah, sure. But yes, so this has been passed, which, and I think it's okay for us to talk about, because I think it is kind of refreshing that this was both sides of the fence agreed on this.
Yes.
Which is something you don't see very often
Yes,
these days.
bipartisan by all
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
It went through much more quickly under their designation of the legislation, that they knew it was a non-controversial one. And so all but, I think, 2 people, so a couple hundred folks came together from every aspect of politics and said, this is something we need for our nation and community.
Yeah.
And I am very happy about that as an advocate.
So just kind of one thing that the Family Crisis Center, our executive director, Whitney, sent to us just yesterday is from the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. And it says, under the new law, publishing or distributing non-consensual sexually explicit material, including AI-generated images or deep fake pornography, is finally a federal crime. Additionally, social media, hey, kudos to social media. Additionally, social media platforms and similar websites will be required to remove these images within 48 hours once a survivor reports them.
Yes, and that kicks in, I understand, in 1 year, they
Okay.
will begin requiring these companies to remove the content within 48 hours once it's reported.
Now, I'm not a tech guy, but do you really have to wait a year?
Right.
I would think Meta,
Yeah.
X,
And some of them were supportive of this.
Right.
I
Oh, sure,
understand.
sure.
I guess that's just them saying, get your act together.
right,
And, get
and
your
there may be a lot more underlying than I, like I
get
said,
your policies
I am
in
no,
place. Yeah, we'd love it to happen
Yeah,
starting today.
but how much effort does it take to take something down?
Yes, and I wish they would
You know.
police themselves and not
Yeah.
just wait until something's reported. So.
Right, sure.
But it was interesting to me that, part of the reason why this bill came forward was because we had incidents with children. There was a young lady who deep fakes were created by another student of
Yeah.
her, which got out, which portrayed her in sexually abused images. And then also one of the other folks who was talking about this bill was actually a representative representative from South Carolina. His 17-year-old son had actually committed suicide in 2022 after sextortion. A scammer had enticed him to send images, and we call that sextortion. It comes from the word extortion and sex being combined, where children are enticed to send images and videos of themselves, and then people blackmail them and threaten them. And we have had this happen, and it continues to happen right here in East Texas.
Well, and that is something that just probably maybe within the past 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, that I'm now, whenever I go out and do presentations to the public about sexting and consent, I am now also talking to folks about sextortion.
Yes, it's so critical for parents to know. And then also, I would say, you talked about social media. Parents, think about what you're posting about your own children. For instance, I have a friend who recently had a baby. Anytime she posts photos where that child's face might be visible, she puts like a cute little sticker or something over that to prevent her child's facial image from being taken and used.
So she puts it over the child's face?
Yeah, so she either makes sure the child is facing away from the camera or the video, or she'll put something over it, like a cute sticker you can do digitally.
Right.
So she prevents her child's face from being available on social media. In all those cute posts that parents want to post. So if you don't have your social media completely locked down to only your family members, you probably should be thinking about that and talking to your children about what they're posting.
Well, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people, and we were kind of having this discussion before we started. So many people, social media is such a big daily part of our lives now that a lot of people have become desensitized to the possible risks of when you post things online. And even if you have you're thinking, my baby's so cute. Look what, he or she is doing. I'm going to post a picture. Proud mama, proud daddy, or whatever. And unfortunately, kind of like I said at the beginning, it doesn't take much for somebody to ruin a good thing.
It's really sad that we have to think this way.
And then you got to do that.
It's really sad. But it is a danger. And so it's something we have to think about protecting our children's identity. Yeah. We do have new guidance from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children around AI and child safety. And probably a lot of people don't realize, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC as we call it for short, most people probably know that by Adam Walsh. Who's his son? They had their son who was murdered and taken, abducted, murdered. That began that whole program. That is a federally supported program that helps with missing and exploited children. Exploited is where a lot of people don't realize they do a huge amount of work around cyber safety, digital safety, and that's why we're mentioning their center. They have curriculum. They have a support material for parents. They were part of the Take It Down movement because prior to this bill, they had a program called Take It Down, which was part of what they did. Yes, so they were a huge part of this federal bill and supported it, and we're very glad to see it. Right. We do have new guidance we're giving parents we can talk about.
Yeah, please.
But I want to give parents a heads up that there are AI apps out there right now in our community, right here in East Texas, that are being passed around that we are seeing in cases of child sexual abuse. Related to it, we're seeing so many social media related cases where children are being approached, and even by local people, because a lot of our social media has the option of your location. So I do recommend, especially for younger children, that parents think about, do we or do we not need them to have their locators on? Maybe you have something like Life 360 where you kind of follow each other, and I understand that, wanting to know where folks are. But it can be a danger because some of these apps they're social, and so the whole thing is meeting your local people. But the apps we're seeing, things like Talkie is one of them. Where at first, it looks okay. What these apps are is that it's sort of like if you think about a set of going to the library and you're choosing a book you want to read that looks interesting to you. That's what these apps are with AI. They're situations that are fiction that children can enter into that's not designed for children, but it's really supposed to be for adults. But children are getting these apps and downloading them and making accounts by using, different dates of birth than they're supposed to. But there are all these fictional situations, just like stories, just like books on a shelf, that you can enter into and be in this fantasy world. And what you receive depends on what you type in. So AI has lots of different levels. The lowest level AI is like when you're on your phone and you say, hey, whoever you're talking to, lady, I don't have an Apple, so I'm not as Apple friendly, but, hey, Siri, tell me where this is, my local restaurant.
And you just set off who knows how many Apple phones just now with what you said.
Sorry. So sorry, folks. Sorry about that. I've had that happen in my house.
No, and I do the same thing.
Yes. Anytime you have to log in to a site where you're pre-registering for your medical appointment and a little AI friend hops out, or you're on Amazon and a little AI friend chat box, how can I help you? Yes. That is all AI at its very lowest level.
Right.
And then there's Chat GPT. You can go, and I actually went in and asked AI to generate for me an essay on how dangerous AI is for children. And it did. And it was pretty good. Yeah. And that was so ironic to me that it knows how dangerous it is. But what it is, depends on what you say to it. It goes out and gathers content from the internet and gives it back to you in a form that's fairly readable. Kids are using this to write essays at school. So now teachers are having to figure that out. But where it becomes dangerous is these apps that children can enter into because they are having sexualized situations that they can enter into.
And it doesn't necessarily, I guess, have to be visual. This could just be...
It's a combination. There absolutely are AI-created images associated with it. There's a thing that is, I'm a little bit older generation, so, but there's a thing called a graphic novel. Right. Which is where it's like
a comic book.
Yeah, it's like a comic book. It's a story with pictures. So this is the digital online version of a graphic novel.
Okay, I got you. I see.
So these are graphic novels basically that you can enter into that have the images. They may be still images or moving, but there's a storyline going on based on what you say. Also with that, there can be real people, other people in there chatting with you. So it's a combination. There's the danger. Children can get sexual content, and then also there are real people who can see what they're saying and enter into conversation with them. Yeah. Talkie, when you first look at it, doesn't have that many bad ones, but then there's one. This is rated for adults, right?
Okay.
So I looked at it. There was a situation you could enter into, a fantasy story, and it was all about a high school relationship and someone who had a crush on you and all that. Why would adults want to be doing that? So it's obviously drawing more kids. But then there are newer ones such as Polybuzz, Polybuzz, Polybuzz. I went and looked at it. It was so bad that the firewall at my office wouldn't let me see all of it. So I actually had to go off my Wi-Fi and look at it to see, because we're seeing children locally right here in East Texas with this app. Every single situation on there were like tiles of information. You can just go to any store on your phone and download this for free. All the tiles, every single one was sexual. Yeah. And it was not just sexual, it was violent, dangerous, frightening, very disturbing. Yeah. And so these are things that are being passed around in our schools, and the technology is so new that it doesn't get caught by your regular parent filters.
Sure. I'm just curious, I don't know if you know this or not, or in your research, things like Talkie, Polybuzz, were they originally developed with good intention and they got taken over and hijacked? Or do you think they were created with possibly that in mind.
I think ones like Polybuzz were created entirely for sexual content because
Okay.
every single option I saw on there was all except for one or two, which were like dark, kind of satanic looking,
Yeah.
disturbing. All but one or two out of about, like, let's say 25 or 30 tiles I looked at were all sexual. Different genders, bondage situations, multiple partners, all that kind of. I don't want to get too graphic, but things that are not okay for someone who may be 12 years old or 13 years old. Why do they have this on their phone?
Yeah.
What are they doing? Talkie may not have been targeted for that originally, but some of the materials in there now. And those are just two examples. There are endless. When you go to the store and you look at something, it comes up with, hey, we think you might also be interested in.
Yeah, you got to be careful when you start looking at things like that.
Yes.
Kind of a little bit of a side note. Whenever you and I talked last week about you coming over here and doing this topic, on my computer, I start searching AI related to not a child porn search, but AI generated child porn, the legal ramifications, policies, the current situation, things like that. Literally the next day on my Facebook feed, I start getting ads for these AI apps. Now these, the whole other topic, are like AI quote unquote companions.
Yes.
These apps, if you're lonely, here's a girl that you can talk to.
Yes.
And it's all, and it wasn't just one app that I was getting ads for. It was a multitude of these different apps.
Yes.
Right.
And I was checking that also and saw so many. Primarily they are sexualized images of women who are artificial.
Yeah. And they look, and I will say that they look, you could tell that it's art. It's not meant to look like a photograph. Yeah. But my thing is, and a couple of people at the office were noting that even in the images in these AI apps I was getting ads for, these women looked very young.
Yes. They all, virtually all look young, or, there's a concept that evolved from Asia, which is now all over the U.S., which is the girls in school uniforms, for instance. But all of those images look like very, very young, possibly underage, scantily clad. But even the ones that are rated for youth, I have seen have inappropriate images. One of the side suggested ones was like a 3D art app marketed to youth for them to use, where you can choose any one of all these characters to kind of change in 3D forms, and it's for drawing purposes, so it looks innocuous. But one of the apps, for instance, its primary image that they were using to promote it was an underage looking girl. She was a fake image, but was clad in a way that was sexualized, and she was positioned sexually.
Yeah.
And so that's marketed to youth. And so, parents, please be checking your children's
phones. Well, that's my next question. For a parent who's listening, what do they need to be watching out for?
Well, first of all, I would say, have some general knowledge. And this hasn't changed over all the years that we've had social media going on. It now applies even more to AI. Try to have a good general knowledge. You can Google things like, what are the top 10 dangerous apps for kids, those kind of things. Those are good to know. But even more important and critical from an advocate point of view is have conversations with your children, first of all, on expectations. And let them know the dangers. Do not be sending pictures or videos of yourself, especially of your private areas. This is what we teach kids in school. This is what we teach parents in parenting classes. Sexting is rampant in our schools. It is rampant in our youth relationships. It's almost an expectation in young dating relationships. That's how common it is. but to be having the conversation about how that is giving up autonomy, that's giving up power over your body to another person. And I will sit in a classroom and ask kids to raise their hand, just like in general texting and pictures, not sexualized, but just general. How many of you have ever sent one to the wrong person? And more than 50% of the room, hands will go up, So I said, imagine sending this to your grandma by mistake,
Yeah.
So that's it's almost old school now because technology is so fast. Sexting is almost really an old school conversation because we're now having the AI conversation. But parents really, we believe, need to set an expectation as early as possible with children that you will be regularly looking at their phones. It is not an invasion of their privacy. This is such a dangerous situation we are in now that this needs to happen. And if we're handing children phones and not having the conversations around digital safety, we're really to the point where that's being irresponsible. I hate to say that, but it's really necessary. This is how common it is that we're seeing children being victimized right here in East Texas.
I just don't want, and again, kind of along the same lines of what you just said, I implore parents to be involved in what the media that your child consumes. Don't assume your child, you look at these app icons on your kid's phone, you think, oh, that's harmless. They're just...
They all look very cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Polybuzz app is a little purple face that's just kind of a cute little thing. It's not even a human image. It's just a cute little icon, and it looks like something you'd never worry about.
Well, and it comes to mind, and again, I'm not bashing parents when I say this, but in the line of work that I do, which is I go out, among other things, go out to the schools, talk to students about dating violence, about healthy relationships. There have been, not a lot, but there has been a time or two when a parent has called me. Mm-hmm. Well, what exactly are you going to tell my kid? I really think this should be taught at home.
Yes. I wish it were.
That's awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But how many parents actually do that?
Yeah. My feel is that it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
From body safety on up.
Yeah.
Those conversations aren't happening. A lot of times it's just that, parents aren't sure how to approach it. I would say around the phone conversation, from the beginning, I really encourage parents to make that a partnership with your child. It's easier the earlier you start that. It's harder to begin it when they're teenagers. I would say don't just throw your hands up and not do it because they're maybe teenagers and you're listening. But as soon as you give them a phone, have that conversation on, this isn't, and this is what I did with my own children who are now adults, who are in the first generation of phones coming in. Now we're having children that are born into it.
Right.
But the conversation was, it's not that I don't trust you. It's that there's a lot of predators out there, and we need to be a team on keeping you safe. And then every once in a while, I would check in, starting with those words. Hey, I just want to check in with you. What's happening with your social media? Is anybody approaching you for this or that? Make sure, I just want to revisit and make sure you're not sending images or videos. It's just like we have conversations with them when they're little. Don't run out in the street. Don't stick something in the socket. This needs to be part of our regular parenting safety conversations.
And I honestly don't really know. I am not a parent. I'm sure, as smart as our phones are these days, I'm sure there's a lot. If your phone doesn't come with some form of parental control, there may be some apps out there.
There are
that will enable a parent to.
There are.
Be
Bark is one of the companies. BARK. Harold's House doesn't officially endorse any company, but it's just an example. You can go to the Bark website, and they have all kinds of options. From $5 a month or whatever on up.
Well, I didn't want to throw you a curve and ask you, but now that you're bringing it up, I'm glad you are mentioning maybe some apps out there that parents can utilize.
Also for young, yes, you can. The issue is they don't catch everything. They look for keywords. They go out and capture keywords and things like that. AI stuff is so new that the technology is not there right now for your safety screening to catch it. It's not able to see what your children are doing out on the app in these fictional scenarios.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. So that's not going to be caught by your firewall, Also, for the younger end children, we really recommend there are phones you can get that are not true full smartphones, where they have a phone, they can communicate with only certain designated people, like yourself, your parents, their emergency contacts. They can text you,
Yeah.
they can communicate, you can know where they are, all those concerns we have for why we give sometimes children that are young phones. I really encourage parents to delay phones in general as long as possible. I know there's a ton of peer pressure for children to have them, and to be aware that they can log into their social media apps on any other friend's phone or device. So just because we take a phone doesn't mean they're not able to get into their social media.
Right.
But there are these phones. I have a coworker who has a kid who's around 10 years old, and that child has one of these phones where you cannot download anything from the internet, you can't surf the internet, but you can still communicate with your parent. And so those phones are out there. If anyone needs help finding that, they're welcome to call us at Harold's House. We can help them. Like I said, we don't endorse any particular product, but there are also apps that are parent monitoring apps you can have. But the safest thing is to check the phone, look at the pictures, look at the video. If you see an app and you don't know what that app is, you click on it, open it. If for some reason it's locked, that's a concern. Why can't I see this content? And also know that there are lots of apps now that are just like Snapchat, where the content deletes after a certain time. Kids don't know that investigators can still get that.
Right.
But, and I don't want to make a big point of that, just for obvious reasons, but children don't know often that they're being what we call groomed by predators, where they are breaking down their boundaries by asking them to first talk about things of a sexual nature, then go into the videos. But what we're also seeing is what we call peer victimization or cyberbullying. I know, Stuart, I'm sure you talk about that in schools, and
Sure.
I do too. Cyberbullying has been around for a while. What it's evolved into with AI is what they call nudify apps, which is those deep fakes where you can take a picture of a friend or someone you know, or you get a hold of a picture of them and you create a sexualized image. This is what happened in that first girl we talked about with the Take It Down federal law. That happened to her. And so they pass it around and they get bullied. With these images where these kids think these are going around. And this is how AI is being used to degrade, harass, bully kids. Kids do and have suicided over this. And so we need to be on top of this. And I'm glad this is now federal law for anyone, our adults included, who are in adult dating relationships where they then get the revenge porn. But starting the conversations is really about checking in with them, like you said, reaffirming to them that, hey, if something has happened, let me know. I am here for you. We are your safe people. You're the most important thing in our lives. Help us help you. We want to work with you on it. There is some help we can give. If something like this has happened or ever does, let us know. We want you to be safe. We want to encourage that, and there are resources that are available at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children under their NetSmarts program. If you can't find it, let us know. Really, things to address with them is to discourage kids from making this content or sharing it.
Yeah.
Don't share it. A friend sends it to you, it needs to go no further, because then you are guilty of passing along this sexual abuse material or pornography.
I make that point very clear whenever I talk to students about sexting.
Yes. And I know we've both talked to kids about being an upstander, about not being a bystander, where you just see something happen and you don't say anything. And that covers everything from cyberbullying to AI images to that a friend of yours is getting sexually abused. We need to be talking to someone to help them. So whoever, encourage your children to know and name some safe adults they would talk to if they ever saw an issue.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end of school, so they're not going to be able to be talking to their school counselors or their school nurse. So who are some other safe people? and foster empathy in kids. What is it? What would you feel like if this happened to you? We don't want this to be happening
Right.
to other people. I think empathy is a huge thing
Yeah.
that we need to be encouraging in children, so that we have people who go on to become empathetic adults in our community.
Okay. All right. Ashley, thank you. This is, wow, 40 minutes. This is awesome.
Yes, so much more we could talk
Oh,
about.
of course,
but these are the basics.
this is great. I guess the one thing I would like to add, if you are a parent, make sure you tell your child it does not matter what you do or what kind of trouble you think you may be getting into. Always make that child feel like they can come tell you
Yes.
that something's going on,
Yes.
and that let them know that you are there, that you love them, and you are there for them and to
Yes.
help them out. All right. Ashley Cook with Harold's House. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
it. Just want to wrap things up. If you, as always, feel like you need the assistance of the Family Crisis Center, we do have our toll-free 24-hour-a-day number. That's 1-800-828-7233. Be sure to subscribe to Conversations and Connections. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and pretty much any podcast service of your choice. Remember, be the voice, if not for you, for someone else.